Hey everyone, this is Taehyung. Before we begin, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your country in the comments below. I'm inviting you to my home for Christmas. Saying it out loud still feels surreal because for so many years, December was just another month filled with endless schedules, flight delays, studio lights, cameras, interviews, countdowns, and stages that never seemed to stop. I moved forward with the members, with Namjoon guiding us calmly, Yoongi teaching me patience in quiet ways, Jin making us laugh when the days felt heavy, J-Hope radiating warmth and endless energy, Jungkook reminding me how pure passion can feel, and even the moments I spent alone, I learned so much about myself. I have been endlessly grateful. But somewhere along the way, Christmas became a date I barely noticed, passing quietly while I was in a practice room, a hotel room, or a studio booth, surrounded by people, yet feeling alone in the silent spaces in between. This year feels different though, and I can't fully explain it yet. I feel it in my chest as the air turns colder, in the reflections of city lights against late night windows after practice, in the jokes the members make about past Christmases when life felt simpler. For the first time in years, I don't just want to get through Christmas. I want to live it. I want to feel it. I want to share it. And I want you to be there with me when that day comes. For so long, my home has been a stopover between tours and promotions, a place to rest before leaving again. But lately, when I step inside after a long day at the studio, when the world's noise fades and everything is quiet, I imagine what it would feel like if you were there too, sitting in that space, not as a fan, not as a voice on a screen, but as someone real in my real life, sharing the air, the room, and the ordinary silence that suddenly wouldn't feel ordinary at all. I used to think Christmas was for others, families at home, couples walking under the lights, friends around tables full of food and laughter, while I watched from schedules, screens, and distant moments. Always busy, always moving, always building with BTS, always chasing the next song, the next performance, the next dream. I don't regret it, not for a second. But I have to be honest with myself now. I don't want to keep celebrating Christmas from afar. When I picture this Christmas, I don't see bright stages or crowded venues. I see my living room softly lit, a simple tree in the corner, warm lights, quiet music playing somewhere in the background. I imagine waiting with nervous excitement, checking the time more than I should, wondering when you'll arrive, imagining the sound of the door opening, and when I look up and see you standing there in my space, I don't feel like an idol or someone known by millions. I just feel like a person about to share something important with someone who matters deeply. I think about how differently my life looks on the outside versus inside. People see stages, awards, cheers, but they don't see quiet nights after everyone leaves. When the members and I sit back in the dorm or our apartments, exhausted and reflective, talking about food, family, or lives we might live one day, when the noise softens, a quiet part of me began holding onto the idea of spending Christmas not as Kim Taehyung from BTS, but as just Taehyung in my home, with someone special across from me. I've spent countless Christmases traveling, rehearsing, celebrating backstage with fast meals and quicker smiles, telling myself that being with the members was enough. And it was, but I've learned that there's a kind of warmth I've been missing. A warmth that comes from sharing one slow day with someone without schedules or obligations. Lately, even while planning end of year stages and broadcasts, I find myself thinking, when the last light turns off, when the final rehearsal ends, when the stage fades, I want to come home and not be alone. I want to wake up to someone beside me, not silence. That's why this invitation is so meaningful. It's not about tradition. It's about finally opening my real life to someone, letting them step into the space. I usually protect the space where I am not performing, not smiling for cameras, not being watched by the world, but simply existing as myself with all my quiet thoughts and imperfections. I don't know exactly when this feeling grew so strong, but it didn't come from the noise. It came from the silence, late nights alone after practice when Jungkook had already gone home, when Hobi might still be dancing in a studio, when Namjoon was lost in books, Yoonji working on melodies, Jin teasing everyone in the group chat, and me realizing that success feels different when there is no one beside you to share the small moments. This is the first time in years I want to slow down Christmas instead of rushing past it. The first time I want to wake up without an alarm, cook something simple instead of ordering takeout, sit at my table and not think about the next flight or obligation. And when I imagine that day, the only missing piece is you. I'm saying it out loud because I no longer want to keep this in my thoughts. I imagine something quiet and warm, not loud or extravagant. A moment that exists not for applause or cameras, but for the two of us. The more I think about it, the more I realize how much I've been craving this kind of ordinary warmth without even knowing it. My home isn't a stage. It isn't polished or performative. It's soft, quiet, and familiar, a place where I return late at night, drop my bag, sit in the dark for a few minutes, and let the world fade. I imagine you walking in on Christmas Eve, not rushing, with patience, knowing you belong there for more than a fleeting moment. Even before you arrive, I feel the quiet, nervous excitement that I rarely let anyone witness. I can see the members teasing me if they knew. Jin would laugh and say, "Relax." Namjoon would reflect thoughtfully. Yoongi would quietly nod, understanding. Hobi would beam his bright smile. Jungkook would get excited like it's normal. And Taehyung, that is me, would feel that this is a beginning, a moment of choosing stillness, intimacy, and presence over endless motion. When you arrive, I imagine taking your coat, showing you around even if the space is simple, making sure you feel at ease. Not because you need permission, but because I want this to feel like home. There would be no strict plans, just soft music, a glowing tree, quiet hums from outside, and the simple fact that we are together in the same space. Maybe we'll talk about everything or nothing, about the year past, about small moments no one else sees. No rush, no pressure, just the slow unfolding of two people learning to be comfortable in the same silence. At Hype, I am constantly surrounded by sound music playing, voices calling, footsteps echoing through hallways, managers discussing schedules, producers shaping melodies, dancers counting beats, and I love that world. It has shaped me, given me everything I dreamed of, and made me who I am. But there is another side of me quietly growing in the spaces between all that noise. A side that longs for low voices, slow evenings, conversations that don't end because someone knocks on the door calling me back to a stage. This invitation to my home for Christmas comes from that quieter place inside me, the part tired of moving constantly, the part that wants to sit still and let time stretch gently. I think about cooking that first night together, not because I am a great cook, but because the act itself slows everything down. The warmth in the kitchen, the aromas filling the air, the way time stretches while something simmers. Whether you help me or just sit nearby and talk while I move around the space, it doesn't matter. What matters is that it feels honest, unforced, and entirely ours. I imagine us sitting at the same table where I usually eat alone after long days. And for once, the chair across from me wouldn't be empty. That thought alone changes the entire feeling of the room in my mind. For so long, I convinced myself that being busy was enough, that moving forward without pause equaled fulfillment. Applause could replace presence. But lately, I realize there are kinds of fullness that only exist when you allow someone close enough to share the quiet moments. And that is what I hope for now as Christmas approaches. The more I imagine it, the clearer it becomes that this isn't about decorating a house or preparing a meal or exchanging gifts. It's about opening a door I've kept closed for a long time. Not because I didn't want connection, but because I feared needing it. And now I feel ready to need it without pretending I don't. When I think about that night, about Christmas Eve in my home with you there, I feel warmth that doesn't come from heaters or lights, but from the possibility of allowing someone closer than anyone outside my family or the members of BTS has been in a long time. That feeling tells me this invitation is not small. It is a real step into a different way of living that I've been growing into without fully realizing it. As Christmas moves closer in my mind, the picture becomes softer and clearer at the same time. The edges gentle, the center strong and steady. I can almost feel the quiet weight of that evening settling into my chest, making me breathe slower, as if my body already knows that something important is waiting. I imagine the house growing quieter as the night deepens, the city slowing down, the sounds outside becoming fewer and softer. Inside, it's just us, the faint crackle of warmth, the low glow of lights that don't demand attention but exist to make the space safe and calm. In that quiet, I imagine us learning each other in ordinary ways, not dramatic, not forced, but through posture, silence, and the way time stretches when no one is rushing us. I think about how different this closeness feels compared to life on stage. On stage, every movement is intentional, every breath counted, every second synchronized with music. Here, there is no choreography, no count, no spotlight, just natural pauses, natural movement, natural laughter that happens when it wants to. I often reflect on how millions of people feel close to us while we guard our personal spaces carefully. We laugh at it, we accept it. But sometimes, late at night, I feel the difference between being known and being truly seen, between being celebrated and being quietly understood. That is the space where this Christmas invitation lives for me. There is a kind of vulnerability in letting someone stay overnight, seeing me not just awake and composed, but tired and unguarded, the simple version of me that exists when no cameras are watching. I think about the way sleep transforms a room, how darkness shared with someone else changes the atmosphere, how morning light touches things differently after a night spent together. That is why the idea of waking up on Christmas morning together holds so much meaning. Not because of what we do, but because of what staying together represents. I imagine moving through the kitchen in the early hours, no alarm, no phone, no managers calling, just existing with the soft sounds of morning around us. For someone who has lived for so long according to schedules, countdowns, and obligations, unstructured time feels almost foreign, like stepping into a world measured not by what comes next, but by how fully it is lived. And sharing that moment with you makes it feel gentle instead of intimidating, something I can finally lean into instead of resisting. I think of the many Christmas mornings I've spent in hotel rooms, in unfamiliar cities, with half drawn curtains, traffic humming outside, checking my phone to remind myself where I am, what the day demands. Each time I told myself it was fine, that this was the life I chose and loved, and all of that was true, but it was not the whole truth. Somewhere inside, there has always been a part wanting mornings that start freely, mornings that exist to be shared. That desire is finally close enough to feel real. Later that day, maybe we sit near the window, light shifting, world moving slowly outside, while inside time is suspended. I feel fullness that cannot come from any stage, no matter the crowd, applause, or performance. At Hype, growth has always been about outward expansion, reaching new stages, achieving dreams. Now, I find myself dreaming inward, dreaming of deeper connection, quiet moments, ordinary beauty. The members each carry their own kind of quiet humanity, and being around them teaches me that it's okay to want my own closeness too. This Christmas feels like the first time I'm not pushing that desire aside. The first time I'm not telling myself to wait. The first time I allow sharing a life moment with someone outside of BTS and my family to feel natural instead of distant. That shift feels quiet but powerful. The outside world sees a certain image of me, but the version thinking about this Christmas is barefoot in my home, breathing stillness, feeling nervous, hope that doesn't need an audience. As the day stretches from morning to afternoon, I imagine moving without plans, letting hours unfold naturally, sharing small moments that won't make headlines but will live inside me forever. Moments that become quiet anchors for the future, reminders of a warmth I can carry even through late nights, rehearsals, and flights. And the more I sit with this possibility, the more I understand that this invitation isn't only for you, it's for me. Permission to choose a moment that doesn't need to be extraordinary to matter. Permission to let something simple be central without apology. There are nights when I come home late, when the building is quiet and even the streets seem to be resting. I stand in my doorway, letting darkness fill my eyes, imagining how different it would feel if someone else shared that space. The darkness would transform into something gentle, warm, intimate, simply because another presence existed inside it. In moments like that, I understand how much this invitation matters not as drama, not as spectacle, but as a reflection of the quiet change already growing inside me. A shift toward allowing myself to be seen not just as an idol, but as a person who wants to come home and feel belonging. Not belonging by fame or title, but by connection. The idea of tradition begins to form naturally from that feeling, not forced, but cultivated over repeated moments of choosing warmth, presence, and shared calm. I realize now that Christmas is less about creating perfect memories and more about allowing small, simple moments to become meaningful over time. Tradition is memory that chooses to stay, and the thought that a quiet day could someday become a steady, lasting warmth fills me with calm excitement, a glow that doesn't rush, sparkle, or demand attention, but simply exists, patient and constant. I see the members carry their own versions of that glow, speaking of family, talking about the futures they want to protect, joking about the lives they imagine later. Being surrounded by that reminds me there is no single correct shape for life. Growth isn't only outward, it is inward, deepening. For years, I rarely allowed myself to linger on what I wanted internally because stopping felt dangerous. Slowing down felt like weakening momentum. But now I am learning that momentum does not always come from speed. It can also come from intention. This Christmas stands as a quiet marker of that learning a decision to let intention guide me instead of habit, to choose presence over motion, connection over distance, depth over endless forward movement. The weight of this choice is grounding, not burdensome, steadying me in ways the outside world rarely allows. Even when the days after Christmas return to rehearsals, flights, and schedules, I feel less fear of losing this warmth. I know that once a door like this has opened, it does not truly close. It becomes part of the interior landscape I carry with me. I imagine carrying the warmth of that day into the cold hallways of practice rooms, late nights at the studio, the spaces between airports and hotels. For the first time, I feel less divided between my public life and my private heart, as if the two are learning to walk together instead of separate worlds. And the more I sit with that possibility, the more I understand that this invitation isn't just outward. It's for me to permission to choose a moment that doesn't need to be extraordinary to be meaningful, permission to let something simple become central without apology. Christmas becomes less of a day and more of a doorway, less of a celebration, more of a quiet crossing. I stand at that threshold, steady, ready to step forward, not in the urgency of performance, but with calm determination, knowing exactly what I am moving toward. And as I do, the smallest details of daily life feel different, as if waiting for this moment to give them new meaning. The evening air feels colder, the city lights blur past car windows, my chest rises a little deeper with each breath, imagining a season that will not pass me by unnoticed. I pay attention to ordinary things with unfamiliar tenderness, the boiling water in the kitchen, the distant hum of traffic, the faint reflection of my face in dark glass. And in each quiet moment, I feel a gentle pull toward the idea that soon these same moments might no longer belong only to me. They might belong to us. I think about the first time we sit together by the softly lit tree. No schedules, no obligations, just the faint scent of pine, the glow of the lights, the sound of soft music, and the slow unfolding of conversation. Maybe we talk about our day, maybe about nothing at all. The beauty is in the ordinary, the slow awareness of each other's presence, in laughter that doesn't demand attention, in silence that feels safe. For someone like me who has spent so long performing, this feels radical. Not performance, not spotlight, not achievement, but a simple human connection. I imagine cooking together, moving around the kitchen, sharing small tasks, not perfection, not a show, but presence, intention, patience. Whether you stir the pot or sit quietly beside me, it doesn't matter. The magic isn't in the act itself, but in the shared experience, the mutual care. And when we sit to eat, the chair across from me finally fill, I imagine the space feeling alive in a new, intimate way. What once felt quiet and lonely now feels warm and meaningful. For years, I told myself that being busy was enough, that moving forward without pause equaled fulfillment, applause replaced presence. But now I know that fullness comes in ways that cannot be measured. It comes when you allow someone into the quiet, when you share slow moments that aren't rushed or recorded. That is what I am hoping for this Christmas. As I imagine that Christmas Eve, I picture us sitting together near the window, the soft light shifting through the room while the city outside slows down, time feels suspended in its own rhythm. I think about how those moments will linger not as fleeting memories but as steady warmth that stays with me long after the decorations are taken down. Even after the performances resume, after flights and rehearsals, after the bright lights of the stage, that quiet evening will remain a small anchor in my life, a reminder that intimacy and calm can exist alongside chaos and constant motion. I picture us moving through the day without schedules, without pressure. Perhaps we'll cook together, or maybe you'll sit and talk while I move around the kitchen. Every gesture will feel deliberate, meaningful, not because it's extraordinary, but because it is ours. Every simple act, the stirring of a pot, the clinking of a spoon against a bowl, the quiet conversation will become part of something larger, a memory built from small, deliberate moments of presence. The idea of sharing this time feels revolutionary to me. For years, I've lived in a world measured by applause, schedules, camera lenses, and fan expectations. Every moment was choreographed, every step calculated. But in this imagined Christmas, there is no performance, no measurement, no expectation, just us, breathing together in the same space, moving naturally through time, laughing freely, sharing silence that feels alive rather than empty. I imagine walking through the quiet streets on Christmas morning, perhaps grabbing coffee from a nearby cafe, or simply watching the snow fall outside my window. The world outside will carry on, unaware of these small moments, and that is precisely why they feel sacred. There is freedom in knowing that this time exists solely for us, that it will not be captured, broadcasted, or analyzed. It exists simply because we chose to be present, simply because we allowed ourselves to slow down, to feel, and to be together. I think about the moments after Christmas when the world returns to its usual rhythm. Rehearsals, recordings, flights, stages, and spotlights. But I no longer fear that the warmth of this time will disappear. That evening, that shared quiet, will have left a mark on me. It will remind me that amidst the chaos, it is possible to create a space of calm, of connection, of belonging. That space can exist even in the busiest of days, even under the brightest lights. I reflect on how much I've grown over the years. From a young boy dreaming on a small stage to standing in arenas filled with thousands, I've learned to navigate the world of fame, expectation, and performance. But I've also learned that growth isn't only about outward achievements, it is about understanding the value of small, quiet moments. It is about allowing oneself to desire closeness, intimacy, and real connection without fear. This Christmas, I want to embrace that lesson fully. I imagine sitting across from you at the table, the warmth of the room surrounding us. The tree lights flicker softly, casting gentle shadows across the walls. We might speak of our families, our dreams, or perhaps nothing at all. The simple act of being together without any other obligations feels like the truest gift I could imagine. In that moment, I am not Kim Taehyung, the performer, the idol, or the public figure. I am just Taehyung me, with all my vulnerabilities, hopes, and quiet thoughts, inviting someone into my life in a way I haven't done in years. I imagine us walking through the streets later, maybe just outside my building, the world still hushed. The lights on buildings reflecting softly on wet pavement, the crisp air filling our lungs. There is no rush, no schedule, no stage to perform. Just the two of us moving through the ordinary world in a way that suddenly feels extraordinary because it is shared. That, I realize, is the kind of intimacy I've been craving without knowing it. Moments where presence itself becomes the story, where simple gestures carry weight because they are chosen freely, sincerely, and together. Even the smallest things gain significance: pouring coffee, laughing over a shared joke, noticing how the light falls on a familiar corner, feeling the warmth of someone else's hand nearby. These are the moments that build memories, that give life texture beyond what any stage or camera could capture. I want that kind of memory. I want to live it, breathe it, and hold it close. And more than anything, I want to share it with someone who sees me as I see myself when the world isn't watching. I reflect on how my life has been a balance of extremes, bright lights and quiet shadows, crowded arenas and silent hotel rooms, schedules that leave no time to breathe. And yet, within those extremes, there has always been a quiet yearning for stillness, for ordinary connection, for moments that aren't extraordinary to anyone else but are profound to me. This Christmas represents a chance to embrace that part of myself fully, to acknowledge it, and to share it openly. I imagine the morning after, when sunlight spills softly across the room, when the faint sounds of the city filter in through windows, when we sit together drinking tea or coffee, maybe lingering in pajamas longer than usual. The day stretches before us without urgency, without obligation. There is time to simply exist, to watch, to feel, and to share presence. That is a luxury I've rarely allowed myself in the past, but now it feels like the most natural thing in the world. Even thinking about it now, I feel a calm excitement rising in my chest, a nervous, tender anticipation that has nothing to do with performance and everything to do with connection. I think about how small moments accumulate into something larger over time. How sharing quiet mornings, simple meals, and undemanding conversations can become the foundation of something meaningful, profound, and lasting. And I realized that Christmas for me this year is not about extravagance or spectacle, it is about presence, about connection, about sharing ordinary life with someone in a way that feels extraordinarily real. It is about choosing to step away from the spotlight, if only for a day, and allowing myself to exist fully, quietly, and intimately with someone who matters.